it was raining again in the town of Farwood. This is the 12th time it rained this week. Gloria, Mopsy, and Tasha all sat huddled up in the bedroom, with a candlelight sitting in the middle of the three. They all held hands, their eyes closed as they concentrated on the spell they've worked months on to perfect. As the rain grew to a crawl, the girls all opened their eyes, and gave heavy sighs before falling over, the candlelight putting itself out. Gloria, remind me to make sure we've eaten first, before doing this, Mopsy whined, rubbing her forehead with a couple fingers to take away the ache the spell gave her head. Don't blame me, Mopsy, you were just eager to get this thing off the ground, Gloria replies, wrapping her hair down in a low ponytail, before whipping it behind her back. If Tasha's ready, we can all go downstairs and see what Grammy's cooking for us tonight. Sitting up now, after the headache had gone, Mopsy gives a smile. Oh, right. I think tonight she was going to make her delicious golden biscuits, with a side of rice and beans. I'm drooling at the thought. Gloria exclaimed, both girls getting their stomachs wound up with loud growls, while the last girl sat up from the heaviness it left her body feeling. The two girls turn to stare at her with worried expressions, as she rubs her eyes, and then gives them both a lazy smile. Another spell done tonight, girls. Hopefully the rain was enough to keep the plants dry. How many times do we have to let it rain, Tasha? Mopsy asks, wiggling her small toes that played with the hem of her long pink nightgown, as she held her legs together. Leaning her head on her knees with a curious glance towards the older girl. As long as this town has us, it won't fall apart. Remember that, Mopsy, Tasha smiles, before standing and putting the candle back onto the glass shelf, and closes the door. It's our duty to keep this town from dragging to another graveyard. You remember what happened last time, don't you? She turns to the girls, her long silvery purple hair waving in her face, until it settled on her shoulders, wide magenta-colored eyes giving them both a serious expression. They knew what she was talking about, and they had promised never to discuss it again. That's when they lost her. Tasha, you promised not to speak about it, Mopsy sniffs, her bright emerald eyes already filling up with tears, as Gloria crawled over and held her in her arms, hushing her to remain quiet. Sending a glare Tasha's way, Gloria's eyes already glistening to seeing her sister upset, she shakes her head and huddles with the girl. Tasha watches this with a soft frown, and walks over to the two, taking them both in her arms and holding them tightly. You're right. I'm sorry, Mopsy, I will never speak of it again. You promise? Tasha gives a smile, and kisses her sister's forehead, making the white printed flower on her skin to glow a gentle green. Turning to Gloria, she did the same, and the golden sun on hers also glowed gently. I promise, to never speak of the past again. Now come, you two, let's see if Grammy has finished supper. Helping both of them up, they added kisses to her cheek, making her smile with a light blush. They both leave her behind, as she reassures them that she'd be down in a moment. Taking up the blankets, she folds them gently, and places them on their respective beds, and doing the same with the pillows. Another night for a slumber party, yet they all lived together. It was funny. They acted as if every day could be their last, doing whatever they could to make each day count, and tonight was no different. Of course, the sting of pain that Tasha felt in her heart from the reminder of what had happened before their time. She frowns deeply, as she walks over to the window slowly. The crescent moon on her forehead glowed gently, as the wind began to howl, and dark clouds huddled over the moon and stars. Angry tears ran down her cheeks, as she clenched her fists tightly. It didn't take long for both of the girls to run back into the room, to see the wind slightly changed, and their sister's hair whirling behind her, along with her long purple nightgown. Running over to her, their hands grasped each of her own, and then whisper calming spells to her, not wanting to get any of them in trouble. As the spells catch her ears, the tears slowly subside, her fingers begin to relax, and her mind comes back to reality. Falling into their arms, she pants heavily, her magenta eyes glowing brightly until they slowly dim, and she was left sobbing on their shoulders. I promised. I promised. It won't ever happen again, Tasha whispered, I'll make sure of it. Don't take it to heart, Tasha, you know it wasn't your fault. A knock was soon heard, and they all gasped to see a large shadow appearing out of the dimly lit hallway. It walked into the room, and showered its large eyes over the girls. Then they hear a soft voice. Girls, I've been calling you down for dinner for the last 5 minutes. What's taking you so long? Still playing pretend? They all sigh heavily with relief, as Tasha quickly dries her tears and gives a smile. No, Gram, we were coming down for supper, I hope, before it gets cold. Now come on, darlings. The large woman picked up Mopsy, being the youngest, and Gloria helped Tasha to her feet. She whispers, Are you all right, Tasha? Tasha nods, and they all go down to supper. Later on, after dinner, the girls were all in their beds, listening to the world outside. Gloria listened to the nature of the bats flying around in the wind, catching their midnight meals, while Mosby listened to the whispers of the forest. The fairies checking on the animals and making things as safe as could be, and Tasha listened into the many conversations floating around through town. The people, the cars, the movement that flowed so slowly with time. Their eyes were either open or closed, and they could feel each other's calm breathing. Are you asleep? Tasha asks her sisters suddenly, making both of the girls come out of their tunes of their own little worlds, to sit up and see that their older sister was sitting up on her bed. Her legs folded. Well, I would be if I wasn't thinking so much, Gloria said honestly, giving the other two a smirk. Mopsy held her little bunny to her chest, and gives a small giggle. I'm sorry sis, I was busy listening to the fairies. They are being funny again. Climbing out of bed, Tasha looked out the window, and listened some more. Stomping. She heard stomping, very loud sounds of heavy metal and feet, and a command coming from somewhere. Fear struck her heart, and she took her sisters and ran down the hallway towards their Grammy's room. The girls watch her with frightful eyes, as she shushes them, and tells them to remain very still and quiet. Stay with Grammy. But quiet. She leaves the room quickly, her bare feet hitting the marble floor lightly, as she ran back to their bedroom. They were coming closer, but why? What did they want? Surely they couldn't have followed them here, could they? Then there was pounding on the door, shouts of wanting to come inside. Tasha ran back to her Grammy's room, who was holding the girls with a defensive hold and worried expression. When Tasha came running in, she placed a finger onto her lips to keep them all silent. The shouting continued, and banging as well. Running downstairs, Tasha stood in the middle of the living room, before taking a seat, her legs crossed. Closing her eyes, as her hands sat in on her knees, the crescent moon on her head began to shine, and soon her eyes glowed a gentle magenta. She began to whisper a spell, a barrier to be placed over the house. The ones outside won't see it, but every time they try to touch the house, their skin would burn. Soon, they will leave them alone. Tasha promised, it would never happen again. And she meant it.
Did you enjoy the content? If you did, please give that like button a click, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Don't forget to put your thoughts in the comments section below. And remember, have a raven-filled night.